Writing 123. Hope you're doing well. All right, I'm gonna try to make this a quick business video. I'll put any sort of announcements or logistical stuff in the front end, so if you need to rewatch to remind yourself of that, you'll be able to do that quickly. And then wanted to get at a few concepts as you continue to draft and potentially revise towards the end of the video. So here we go. First of all, as you all know, your final little bit of draft, another 3 pages, due tonight at midnight. And let me reiterate what I said at the beginning. These aren't graded, okay? They have some grades on them, you know, that basically just are a rubber stamp that say, yes, you turned it in and you made a good faith effort to get 3 pages in, 3 pages in, 3 pages in. These opportunities to turn in 3 pages at a time are primarily for you, as we've said. So those of you who have gotten at least 6 done, and maybe you're struggling to finish the last few tonight, maybe you'll end up with 8. Well, great. You've got a week and a half till the final draft's due. So good for you. I mean, you're well ahead of the game. You'll have plenty of time to take a little break, get some distance from your paper, and then revise, okay? So anyway, that's tonight. And just turn in everything you have. Every week, just turn in everything. But, you know, definitely tonight, turn in anything you have, whatever you've got, even if it's, you know, if you're behind, okay? But again, not going to be graded. I'll talk to you about the way that feedback is working in a second. First of all, for this Wednesday, we're going to be doing peer review virtually. So I'll be connecting you into groups of 3, and then you will look over the other 2 people's papers, and they will both look over yours. And you'll have guidance with that little worksheet, or just a few basic points to go over. And I'll give you some options, but it'd probably be great if you could coordinate a Zoom call between the 3 of you and be able to talk through things real time, because that's often very helpful. And you can ask questions back and forth. I'll make sure to remind you of that and send you your groups tonight or tomorrow. So along those lines, giving you feedback, as you noticed, or I hope you looked, I did give you written feedback on your first draft turn in. I can't grade in a full sense, 3 different drafts of 70 odd people in very much depth. And so I have to kind of do somewhat of an overview and say, look at this, look at that, look at that. However, I am willing for anyone who wants to go in depth with your paper. However, this is not a chance for you to kind of sit back on your own responsibilities and just say, hey, give me a grade on this now, so I don't have to, I'll just see if it passes the clearinghouse and then stop doing work on it. No, it's more like I'm your consultant now, okay? You reach out to me and say, hey, I'd love to set up a meeting. Let's talk over my paper. Great, but a few conditions. 1, do that, set up a Zoom appointment unless it's unfeasible because of your location or something like that. And then ask specific questions, okay? Otherwise, I mean, it has the potential to be lazy, as I'm intimating with my example of just, well, okay, I'm just going to send this in just so I don't have to think about it anymore. That's the wrong way to do it. Not because, look, I often end up, writing lots of detailed advice and, whether or not it gets read or heeded, not because I don't want to, but because this is it. I mean, 1 week from now, you're done with writing classes. You can save your, jumping for joy until after the video, but you'll be done. And so my goal is to have you be ready to know what you need to work on in your paper. So, so when you reach out for feedback, video or otherwise, please ask specific questions. Is this, I'm trying to make this point in this section. Is that clear? Do you think this is sufficiently supported in my, on page 4 when I do, don't just say, what do you think of this paper? Again, that's kind of a cop-out. And also the safety net for that sort of thing is in peer review. Okay. And one more note along that line. If you have a question about citations, of course, if you really can't figure it out, I am there for you. But on the other hand, that's one of those things where, if you email me to say, when was the Declaration of Independence written? Well, we have Wikipedia for that. Similarly, for citations, each citation style has a multi-hundred-page book detailing all the particularities of how you use it. I don't expect you to have that in your head. I certainly don't have that in my head. When I'm writing my own research, guess what I have to do? Outside of the very basic, very common citations, I have to go look at, well, how do you cite an interview in MLA 7th edition? Or, whatever. Or remind me, how do I cite a movie? And do I have to, if I'm quoting from it, do I have to do a timestamp? Whatever. I don't remember everything. I have good intuition of like, oh yeah, I think I kind of have to do this. And I definitely make sure I keep all the information as I'm writing and as I'm taking my notes so that it's easy to do when I do look it up. But the point is, if you have a citation question, it's not rocket science, and the best place to go, if you Google it, it will take you there probably, but the best place to go is the Purdue OWL, OWL, which stands for Online Writing Lab. And they have pretty exhaustive information and very clear and easy to search through information on citations for MLA, Chicago, APA, whatever you'll be using, okay? So that's all the logistics. We're gonna do peer review Wednesday. Turn in whatever you've got tonight. Feedback is gonna be pretty checkbox, yes, hit these categories, but if you wanna go deeper on something, please reach out with a question and set up an appointment, or if you have a really specific question, send me the relevant information. The easier you make it for me to drill down to what you're actually concerned about, the better. Now, if you really are just, I'm lost, still describe the way in which you're lost as best you can, okay? Final thing is this. This is the crunch time, and please hear me if this is the only thing you hear on this video, and talking about citations reminds me of this. If this is the only thing you hear, this is the time of semester when people get tempted to plagiarize. And it's not like people, okay, I should say, most people don't set out at the beginning of the semester or now to say to themselves, I want to cheat. I don't want to learn, and I want to, not work like other people and get the rewards of it. I mean, most people aren't doing that. They're kind of like, oh my gosh, it's due tomorrow. I've got, this is kind of what I think anyway, and I'll just kind of change some words. Like, okay, that's what I would have written. That's just a little more efficient. Stop now. It's not due for 10 days. You could easily do the whole process in 10 days. Not necessarily easily, but you could, okay? Don't go down that road. If you don't, if you're stuck, reach out to me. If you're panicked, reach out to me. Don't even compromise a little. Keep yourself just so above board that you're like, well, this might suck, but it's mine. That's great. That's fine, okay? All right, so halfway point or less of the video, and now just transitioning into kind of some concepts and encouragements that came to mind as I was thinking through, okay, what are people going through as they draft? What have I seen in your drafts as I'm reading through, the 3 to 6 pages and the ones that are coming in and the questions that you've asked, okay? So the first one is this, and it might not sound real profound, but like a lot of people struggle to write enough, okay? And I know, in a situation like college where you're writing for a class, you generally have a word count or a page count, and it's not, write fully whatever you need to for this. There's usually some sort of external requirement, and that might seem artificial. On the other hand, even if you're writing for your company's quarterly publication that talks about, we need to talk about how morale has improved. You're an HR manager. I don't know. You know what I mean? You have to write something. Well, guess what? It's like there's going to be these 2 columns, and it needs to be 750 words, because otherwise it'll be like, here's my little blurb filling up the whole page, and the rest of it's white, and it'll look dumb. The point is, word counts and page numbers or something like that aren't something that will go away, even though they might change. So how do you do it? Well, here's what often happens. Oh man, I'm on page 4 and it's 10-page paper and I'm not sure what to do. So I'm just going to kind of start, I guess I want to talk about this. Another aspect will, and then you kind of are rambling. Don't start rambling, and don't just tag on like something completely different or start repeating yourself. Okay, here's what you want to do. Go into, so like picture you've got your paper and it has 4 points. Boop, 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 boom. And let's say you're whatever, more like page 6 or something. You have like, page and a half, page and a half, page and a half, page and a half, whatever. Okay. Instead of like trying to just keep writing towards the end, don't. Go back to point 1 and start asking yourself a series of questions. First of all, was I clear about what I am trying to say in this point? Do I need to repeat it? Then, did I explain it fully? It might be clear to me because I've been thinking about it a lot, or I've read a lot about it, and it's kind of like, well, clearly like this and this. So like you kind of just say your point, not fully and offhandedly say it, and then say, what do I mean by that? Repeat it, explain it. And then check, like, have I mentioned that other people agree or disagree in my sources? Don't rush through. I mean, what the point is, go into one of your sections and camp and make sure that you've like done everything you can. Explain further, give an example, bring up somebody who disagrees, and fully lay out, this is why we do summaries and responses, right? Fully lay out, what is their position? Why would they disagree with me? Explain it better. Talk through, this is how it could actually be a valid criticism, what I'm trying to say. Spend a half a page on that and say, however, camp on a point and expand that. And so instead of trying to just add raw material, go to the things you already have written. They're already largely there. It's a lot easier to add stuff to something, to a section that you already have by, as I've said, what have people said? Have you mentioned enough names? And make sure you cite them. Have you brought up hypothetical rebuttals to what you're saying and then overturned them? Have you given an example? Have you given quotes? Go through and do that for each paragraph. If you added a sentence to each paragraph in a 6-page paper, I don't know, there's probably 3 paragraphs per page-ish, 18 sentences. Each one's about, that's almost a page just by adding 1 sentence to each paragraph or whatever. But don't do it, just don't add fluff, okay? But the point is, think more deeply, and it's easier to do that by going into one point and thinking deeply there instead of trying to like spin off a new point, okay? So that's just a quick tip. Make it deeper. Don't just try to add stuff at the end or make it longer. And in making it deeper, it will get longer, okay? Related thing, and it's a reminder, we talked about logical fallacies, and one of the most difficult ones to spot and one of the most common is, quote, begging the question. And as we talked about, this doesn't mean, people use it like, oh, this begs the question. What they mean by that is simply, this brings up the question. And that's not what we're talking about. The logical fallacy of begging the question means you're assuming the point you're trying to make in the way that you're framing it. So something like, we need to eradicate homeschooling, since we've used homeschooling example. We need to eradicate homeschooling because it damages kids. Now, the underlying premise that you didn't make explicit was the fact that it damages kids, which I don't think it does. All our kids are homeschooled right now, right? The fact that it damages kids is what needs to be proven. Perhaps the logical result of that would be to eradicate it or to outlaw it. But the point is, you haven't proved that it harms kids. So there's often, why would we fall into this trap? Well, because things seem obvious to us, and so we jump to like the application of it. Well, I could use a lot of coronavirus examples that you might have heard in conversation. There's this fallacy on all sides of various debates, like, well, the government, shouldn't be telling us to wear masks, and so I'm not going to wear masks because the government is doing this to take over us or whatever. That's begging the question. You haven't proven the fact that that's what's going on, and so your further point that I'm going to not engage in this lacks weight and is begging the question. And that's not a great example. I didn't think of it ahead of time. but you get the point. The way that relates to expanding your paper is go through and look for gaps in logic where to you it seems obvious, well, this, so obviously nobody would want to engage in this practice, you know, if you're writing about something like that, or, you know, this, therefore this, but you don't realize that you haven't fully proven that first point. Okay, that's begging the question. And to finish up here, if you remember, I know it's hard to remember all these things. First of all, just logical fallacies in general. We spend time on it, but try to keep them in mind. But hopefully you remember the Toulmin model of argumentation, right? With the warrant, you know, ogre, warrant. You remember that, right? The troll under the bridge, holding the bridge up, even though the people going over it never remember, oh yeah, somebody has to hold up this bridge. That's the warrant. Ogre, warrant, or Warren, whatever. And that relates to begging the question in this way. What's often missing is the warrant, and that's what leads to begging the question. If you're assuming the truth or the validity of your warrant, and then, you know, using this bridge willy-nilly without a care in the world, anyone in your readership who doesn't buy, who doesn't think that there's a very strong troll holding up that bridge, is going to be just like, when are they going to, you know, address the fact that their bridge is hanging in thin air? So, for example, back to the homeschooling example, if you say, we should eradicate homeschooling because it damages kids. Okay, the warrant, this is more of a premise that's unspoken there, but you know, well, the premise that's unspoken is that homeschooling damages kids, but the follow-up is that we should eradicate, and that's the warrant, we should eradicate anything that damages kids. It might seem, well, of course we should, but we don't. I mean, there's tons of things. I mean, we don't go in and say, well, parents, you can only feed your children this, you know. So, you know, that is an arguable warrant. So the point is, make your warrants explicit to the degree that they might be in doubt. When you're writing, or when you're starting to read over your paper, ask yourself, am I assuming something that my readers might not assume at every sentence, every paragraph? I mean, this isn't a teacher telling you to do this. When I do my own research, and my, you know, professors in grad school, as I was beginning to publish things, and I remember feeling even then a little like, no, this is clear. But then in retrospect, I've realized it doesn't hurt, first of all, generally, to make something more explicit that you think is obvious. Okay, so expose your ogres. Now, expose your warrants, make them explicit, expand, and make sure you're filling in logical gaps. And this is a great way to revise. And if you're 8-9 pages, it's a great way to just get you right there to 10. And that's it for today. I'll try to do some shorter snippets of little concepts that hopefully, you know, nuggets that will be helpful to you in this final week and a half as you write and revise. You guys are awesome. I hope you're doing okay. Please don't hesitate to reach out, set up an appointment. I am there to talk through your writing with you. Take care and have a good night.